And who turns out to have done it?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that. It would spoil it for you.
Oh, but none of us will see it.
What is happening, folks? Welcome to another episode, Nerds at Night. I am your host, Blake Money, Blake Weather. How is everybody doing out in podcast land? Today, we're going to be doing something a little different. We are going to solve a murder mystery case. More specifically, a murder mystery movie. There's so many videos out in podcast land and out in YouTube, and they'll talk about murder mystery movies, but will they tell you how to solve one? So we're going to do that by solving the murder mystery movie,
Gosford Park.
I just watched this movie last night for the first time. It's incredible. It's an incredible murder mystery, like a primarily British cast, and it's like the who's who of like, think of a British person, that person's in it. Think of another British person, that person's in it. Think of a person that's a British person that's been in Harry Potter. Guess what? That person and that other person is in it. They're all in it. All the British people is in the all of England. All of England is in this movie, and it's great. But how does one go about solving a murder mystery? Where do you even begin? I think you watch a murder mystery movie and you're like, okay, I kind of can put together some clues. But like, what if you had a formula to solve a murder mystery case? And that's what I want to talk about today as we dissect and go into the whole murder mystery of Gosford Park. But before we get into it, let's go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button before we go too deep into the mystery. What even is a murder mystery? Murder mysteries, they at least seem to be primarily driven by some sort of crime, primarily a murder, right? And then you have some like pretty easy tropes. You have a sleuth character and or a detective character. You can have both, one or the other, whatever. Sometimes they're homies, sometimes you just have one. And when you do have a detective or sleuth character, typically that is us. The audience is to the sleuth or detective character the way that the author, writer of the book or movie is to the villain character. They know the secrets. We want to figure out their secrets. We're trying to figure it out together. Our voice through the novel or through the movie is through the sleuth or detective characters. In setting up a murder mystery, what do we usually have? We have suspects, we have clues, we have red herrings, which are suspects that we're like, oh, it's probably them, but it's not quite them. We have some sort of a patsy character that's like, oh, it could be them. I think it's them. That kind of makes sense. That doesn't wrap up everything. That's sort of the patsy. And then we have our villain. And usually between the patsy and the villain reveal, there's some sort of plot twist, some sort of secret that we didn't know going into this, that we didn't anticipate coming. And then with the red herrings also, we have a whole bunch of minor secrets, things we didn't know about characters that usually have no tie-in to the main plot or to the main motive. We're just like, oh, they got this secret. Maybe it could tie in some sort of shape, way, or form. And it ain't got, I'm gonna tell you a secret. It ain't got shit to do with the killing. So with that in mind, we know these things. But what happens in a murder mystery? How does a person even go about committing a murder in a murder mystery? Two things. You got to have a motive and you got to have an opportunity. This is clearly written out in the movie Glass Onion. All of this in mind, we are going to watch Gosford Park. We're at least going to break it down suspect by suspect, plot line by plot line, and then try to determine who the killer is who committed the crime in the movie. This is going to be a lot. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Everybody go grab your little dusters, grab your magnifying glass. Let's go solve us a crime and watch Gosford Park. Like any good murder mystery set in the UK, we begin with Maggie Smith, who has literally been in all the English murder mysteries. Also, there's rain and a spiffy piano ensemble. Maggie plays Constance, aunt of Lady Sylvia, and Constance is trying to get her swerve on in the backseat of this motor buggy ride. I read somewhere online that said she is trying to open a thermos. Nah, baby, that's a martini shaker. I know, because I've been to a bar before, and that's the same shit they gave me when I've had a long day. We find out it's November 1932, and Michael Gambon, aka Dumbledore, is hosting a get-together at his estate. I want to say house, but bro, you got a mansion. That's a property with taxes. That's an estate. There is also a lot of pretentiousness and classism going on between the valet and butler staff below the house, compared to the lords and ladies who are all getting settled in the house. Also, we meet Ryan Philippe, who does an English accent, Scottish accent, and I don't know how I feel about it, but I kind of want him to do it in more movies. Helen Mirren plays the HBIC, and she runs a tight ship. We also meet a young Clive Owen, and wow, look at how young he is. Such chiseled features. Also, we get introduced to our first clue, poison. Or Chekhov's gun, or Chekhov's poison, if you will. I instantly have a lot of questions like, why is there just bottle labeled poison? Y'all not even gonna try and hide that? Y'all just hanging around the poison like it's a poison party? Now this is where we begin to see the mixing of new guests and new valets. And oh yeah, that guy's creepy. And oh, that's Tywin Lannister. And oh, that's that British captain fella from Pirates of the Caribbean. This movie literally has everyone. Sir William, aka Dumbledore, is obsessed with his dog Pip. Someone is a fan of Dickens. He also be flirting with his wife's younger sister Louisa, who is married to Tywin Lannister, aka Raymond. He nasty, so let's watch out for that. We then get some character exposition over a cigarette monologue. Not the first time this happens, but it's important in finding out the background of many of our characters, since we don't have the runtime for a backstory on all of their lives, and I'm kind of okay with that. This starts to set up Mary being our sleuth character, but let's see if that pays off. Also, dang, another person smoking? I feel like this is a whole movie. It's about to be one big Marlboro ad. We then listen to the valet crew going on about, if you are a lady and don't have a servant, you're not a real lady. Like, y'all, is this real? You can't be making fun of people with no servants when you're a servant. And like, why do white people just be making everyone servants? Like, slavery for black people stopped and y'all just said, fuck it, it's some white people around. I have real questions about this. Stop slaving people.
Message.
Anyways, our sleuth Mary starts making friends, and now she's besties with Clive. Like, go Mary. I want Clive Owen to be my bestie.
Wake up, bitch, you're my new best friend. Really?
Ryan Philippe introduces himself as Henry Denton, but no one cares because he's a valet and should be doing valet things. He then has to inform the cooks that his boss is a vegetarian, so his menu must be modified. But he also eats fish? Like, bro, he a pescatarian. Why don't you know these things? I don't go around and say I'm a vegetarian, but I also eat meat. Bro, you confusing people. Go away. Did I mention this movie has some solid, dry humor?
Doesn't eat meat. Now, Mrs. Croft, we don't want to be thought unsophisticated, do we? Mr. Weissman's an American. They do things differently there.
Just like this scene where Constance complains about having to train a new maid.
I'm breaking in a new maid. I'm simply worn out with it. Actually, there's nothing more exhausting, is there?
I don't have a lady's maid.
We get a feel for the type of characters we are dealing with in this house. Then below we do the same and figure out Henry Denton doesn't know how to shine shoes properly. That's a bit sus, and I'll leave it be, but bruh, how you not gonna know how to do your job, my guy? How did you get this far? We return to our valet crew, seemingly talking smack about the guests, but reading between the lines, this is really more exposition for us to digest and helps us better understand characters' backstories and current conditions. We learn Lady Lavina and her husband, Lieutenant Commander. Oh, he's a commander in this movie too? All right. Well, they both broke.
I'm broke, nigga, I'm broke!
Henry out here just wandering around and following the valets around like a little brother, and they tell him to piss off.
Is that what you do?
That's exactly what I would do.
Then that's what I'll do.
And then they realize his accent is kind of sus.
Something funny about that bloke.
Yeah, his accent for a start. What do you think his game is?
We then get some exposition from Constance McGonagall. We find out Mr. Wiseman, played by Bob Balaban, who wrote and produced this movie, is actually a producer from Hollywood, hence the only guest without a British accent. How very on the nose. We see Mary running around like Cinderella, and oh, is that another cigarette? Everyone for sure has lung cancer, right? Like, why y'all smoke so much? Go do something with your life. Anyways, Mary is given a late night task to clean a shirt for Constance, but she a salary worker and she don't get paid for overtime. So yeah, she's real life Cinderella. We also find out Sir William is sick of giving Constance an allowance and he also plans on pulling out of a deal with Anthony. He just wants to prolong the bad news a bit. Also, oh my god, did she just kick a dog?
Oh my God!
Go home and get the gun.
And Sir William is back to being Sir Harvey Weinstein. I told y'all he nasty. We cut to these two fighting because she suspects he's cheating, and the rest of the guests are enjoying some fine piano playing from Ivor Novello, a movie star and William's cousin. Henry back to wandering, like, bro, do some work, clean a fork, do something. Ah yes, more smoking, and then valet family dinner. Henry asks an interesting question at family dinner and gets to know his coworkers a bit more.
How many people here had parents in service? And was that why they chose to go into it?
It's a good conversation starter till homeboy makes it weird.
Yeah, I know what they did, but it didn't have any effect on me on my choice of work.
And why is that?
Because I grew up in an orphanage.
Thanks a lot, Robert. Also, Henry finally gets some shine, and this guy straight mean mugs him the whole time and starts talking shit.
What the fuck are you looking at?
As we move along, there's a dinner mingle, and we see Mary being kind to the other valets. 2 more guests arrive, and they get booted to the game room because they are late. It's post-dinner now, and the men get to smoking cigars, and the cooking staff is cleaning. But during cleaning time, the maids notice one of the knives is missing.
No, it's not here. If it's a silver carving knife, he must have it.
You can tell Mr. Jennings we haven't got that knife.
We're 40 minutes into this movie, and finally we have clue number 2. Lady Sylvia smokes and forgets to tell her maid to get her milk. While searching for her in the hallway, she bumps into Henry, and they discreetly and indirectly agree to a late-night rendezvous.
I'll be wide awake at 1 a.m., bored to sobs.
Then we must try and think of something to amuse you.
Henry and Mr. Wiseman also appear to be in cahoots of some kind, and possibly lovers?
Will I see you later?
I don't think I should risk it, do you?
But also Henry bumps into Mary and tries to test his luck of seduction, and oh no, baby. And wait, are those pants from the film studio? Is this a costume? Is this guy an actor? Luckily, Mary is saved when Robert walks in and low-key saves the day. Robert and Henry then have some whiskey and start to become besties. Henry asks about a picture on Robert's nightstand. Robert tells him that was his mother.
Till she died. End of story.
I'm sorry if I spoke out of turn, mate. Didn't mean to offend you.
I'm not offended. And don't call me mate.
Well, I guess they not besties no more. Mary needs to wash the blouse because she totally forgot to do it earlier. And as she comes down to clean, she incidentally catches a guest and a maid in action. And also finds some poison. I told y'all, like, why y'all got it out here just for everyone to find? Like, this is for sure gonna come into play somehow. Henry gets to delivering his milk, and oh, it's about to go down.
Day 2.
It's day 2, and the boys are getting ready to hunt pheasant. Also, Constance has something important to tell Mary.
Mary, I don't think I'll wear that shirt. The other one's warmer, that's all I care about.
Bruh.
Also, the valets are getting suspicious of Henry.
I think he's got something to hide, that one.
And the valets are using poison to clean shoes. Bro, what? This is a third poison reference. You better do something with it, like poison that lady who kicked the dog. Also, new bonus subplot, William's daughter Isabel is upset. Her father won't hire Freddie. That's not your husband, though, so why are you worried about it, girl?
What the fuck that got to do with me?
Oh, wait, they had an affair and now he's trying to blackmail her? Well, shit. The menfolk are hunting, and what the shit? Are they killing real birds? Sir William is a terrible shot, and oh shit, did somebody try to Dick Cheney him? Miss Wilson is making rounds and checking in on Robert, and he's still 5 pages into the book. Like, really? Last time we saw you was still 5 pages into this book. This book better be a decoy, because ain't no way it takes you 10 hours to read 1 page. There is something strange about this interaction. What's really going on here? At the post-shooting party, William has to give the news to Anthony that he is pulling out his investment. And Anthony is definitely a bit peeved by this. But what's he gonna do about it?
You ain't gonna do shit.
Sylvia comes to warn her aunt that William is in a bad mood and is threatening to cut off her allowance, so she better be chill for the rest of the evening. Dinner starts off very awkward. Anthony yells he's broke, and Cynthia tries to eye William and is caught by her sister. But it is this scene that one of the best parts of the movie happens.
Yeah. Tell us about the film you're going to make.
It's a detective story. Murder in the middle of the night, a lot of guests for the weekend, everyone's a suspect, that sort of thing.
And who turns out to have done it?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that. It would spoil it for you.
Oh, but none of us will see it.
Shortly after this, Elsie stands up for William and claps back at his wife when they are in the middle of an argument.
I will cut you! I will cut you, bitch! Don't
The guests are all speechless, and Elsie knows she done fucked up. Guests start settling in the living room, and the valets and maids start spreading the news about what just happened. The piano man starts playing some tunes to ease the tension for everyone, and boy, he's really stealing the show. The guests all love it, the valets and maids are dancing and awestruck. It's about now that we get some characters scurrying away, and thus, the game is afoot. We know Sir William is in his study enjoying a whiskey, and now we watch as we see more and more characters lurking about, who is well-mannered and who is acting on a vile motive. We then see a person in striped valet pants creeping about the house, getting muddy rain boots, and then retrieving the missing knife. We then see the crime in action. But now we wonder who done it, and when will the body be found? There it is, the scream to let us know we have us a murder on our hands, and now the villain must be found out. The cops are informed, and we see our detective character, played by Stephen Fry, and his name is,
I'm Inspector
I'm Miss Lady Sylvia McCordle.
well, it's,
I'm Inspector
This is my aunt, Lady Trentham. Would you like to speak to the servants tonight, Inspector?
Inspector Tom.
I think he ought to speak to Private, my husband's valet. Would you tell him to come up?
well, I'm sure we'll learn it one day. The valets and maids start to organize themselves amidst the news. Henry has a confession to tell Jenkins, and oh yeah, we get another incredible line from Mr. Wiseman, yet again.
I think it's clear that it's the valet who did it. No, because the valet has access to everybody. He takes care of people. He's in their rooms at night. But I mean, he could do it. I mean, the valet easily could have done it.
Inspector Thomas begins his investigation by moving the body? I've seen CSI once or twice. I don't think this is protocol. But oddly, because of this, we learn not much blood came out of the knife wound. Also, Henry and Sylvia are back at it again. All right.
What were they like anyway? They look pretty good. Are they real? Are they built for speed or for comfort? What'd you do with them? Motorboat? You play the motorboat?
Wait a minute, didn't your husband just die?
They flee.
The inspector makes his rounds and begins to interview Miss Croft, and we are introduced to what I can only assume is another clue based on how long the shot holds on the picture of a baby she has on her nightstand. We learn Freddie makes one final threat to Isabel about blackmailing, but it doesn't matter now that her father is dead. And in the meanwhile, the valets are roasting Henry after his secret came out.
You heard about Mr. Wiseman's valet?
What about him?
Turns out he's a fraud.
Do you think he's a murderer?
It's worse than that. He's an actor.
We fast forward to a morning meal with the gang, and Mr. Wiseman is getting lessons on proper British breakfast etiquette.
The Englishman has never waited on a breakfast.
Really? Well, that's interesting, because an American is.
Also, this fool decides to show up. The inspector decides it's time to question more guests and begins with Constance. We then overhear some maids discussing the murder, and they inform us, although William was stabbed, he was first poisoned. Now we see the clues beginning to come together. We go to Miss Croft and her cooking staff, and she informs them how once upon a time she worked as a cook in a factory William used to own, and that on occasion, if he got a woman pregnant, they would have to give it up for adoption if they wanted to keep their job. And if they decided to keep it, they would be fired.
Message!
Inspector Thompson is now starting to question Mary to see what she knew about Constance's allowance getting cut. This is intercut so well by a police officer in the background, finding new evidence in the crime scene, only to be silenced anytime he finds something new. We then cut back to the server crew and find a weird interaction between Jennings and one of the maids, and it looks like she's willing to lie about something on behalf of Jennings? Now, is she crazy, or is there actually a secret we're all missing? And oh yes, Inspector Magoo over here missing all kinds of clues. At least we know how the killer got in and out without being seen. The valets are trying to plan how to handle the work left over since Henry is no longer a valet. And back to the inspector, who is, yo, stop touching things. Henry comes to the valet floor to be friends again, but they not having it.
He can't sit with us! They're afraid you'll repeat things, being discreet.
But I'm very discreet. In Hollywood, that's what I'm known for.
We catch up with Lord Stockbridge and Lieutenant Commander Anthony and find out Anthony was actually the one who shot William because he's so short.
I saw you. Of course, it was an accident. When a man's as short as you are, it must be very difficult to gauge the height of the birds.
Emotional damage!
Often in times of distress, some people cry and some people stress eat. And well, Anthony is a stress eater and has some late night jam to ease his pain and avoid the rest of the guests over dinner. Back in the living room, Constance is talking smack in British talk about Mabel wearing the same dress 3 nights in a row, and she's not even discreet with her shit talk.
Mabel is so clever to travel light. Why should one wear a different frock every evening?
Excuse me.
Difficult colour green, very tricky.
You don't even wear the right kind of clothes. You got damn stupid shoes on anyway. Where'd you get them ugly breeches?
You asshole.
In the same room, Isabel is handing a check to her former lover, Freddie, who is Mabel's husband, and she sees all of this. Poor girl can't catch a break. She confronts him about it and threatens to cause a scene. Freddie rips the check, and Henry gets hot coffee spilled on him by George. And Constance thinks it's the funniest shit she's seen all day. Also, the waitstaff finds out as well.
Revenge on Mr. Denton. Hot coffee in the lap.
Inspector Thompson is back, and he's not questioning the work staff? Like, what? Isn't that detective work 101? You interview everyone?
I'm not interested in the servants. Only people with a real connection with the dead man.
Bruh.
As he's exiting, he doesn't even leave out of the correct side. Oh boy, we may not be getting much out of our inspector.
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man.
As the night winds down, Elsie reflects on her affair with William. There was definitely some shared affection between William and Elsie, but because she's got a strong emotional wall up, she doesn't admit she loves him. It's within this conversation that Mary hears something that really sets the light bulb off for her. Does she have it figured out? Let's look at the evidence we have before we crack this case wide open. Clue number 1, the poison. Clue number 2, the knife. Clue number 3, the motives of many of the guests and valet staff who dislike William. But who had the opportunity? Let's look at the people who disappeared from the party in order. We have Mr. Wiseman, Robert, Freddie Nisbet, Lieutenant Commander Anthony, Elsie, George the butler. Okay, Elsie returns, but what about Henry? Clue number 4, clearly our knife-wielding villain had valet pants on. Was this actually a valet or someone disguised as a valet? Let's go through the murderer's actions. First, he uses mud-covered shoes to cover his own shoe tracks. He retrieves the missing knife from somewhere, but how did he have access to it? This also had to be someone with knowledge of the hidden passages within the house so as not to be caught. Did this person stab William just to make sure he was dead, or to cover up the fact he was poisoned? Or are there two villains among us? Who could it be?
You didn't really dislike him, did you? Not really. You can't have. You didn't know him. You'd have to hate him, and why would you?
And the murderer is... Robert reveals he was a bastard child of Sir William, and his mother was a factory worker. Apparently, William had many children with many different factory workers, and the police looked the other way or were paid to keep silent about it all. Well, I'd say case solved.
Is that why you took the job with Lord Stockbridge? To get to Sir William? To poison him?
I didn't poison him.
What? Did you stab him? Even if you did, he was already dead. No one could stab a corpse and not know it.
Really? When was the last time you stabbed a corpse?
Oh, shit. We still got a killer on the loose. In the morning, a police officer comes to collect evidence before returning to the station. He finds a bottle of poison in Mr. Jennings' room, and we learn Mr. Jennings was sent to prison after refusing to go into service for the British military. A secret that still haunts him, perhaps. The guests begin to leave, and Anthony and Freddie decide to go into business together since William's death has assured that he won't pull out his investment with Anthony. Lord Rupert breaks up with Isabel, and Elsie runs off to London with Pip. And we also have 12 more minutes left, and we have no idea who the other killer is. We then see Constance and Mary packing to leave, and Lady Sylvia comes to say her goodbyes. She is unsure if she will keep the property or relocate, and goes into an interesting story about the beef between Miss Wilson and Miss Croft. And it is within this story another mystery unravels. Mary yet again is ready to sleuth and find out the truth.
Why did you do it? How did you know it was him? Was it the name, or did you see the photograph in his room?
Ah, yes, the photograph.
We discover so much in the scene. It is revealed Miss Wilson is actually Robert's mother, whom he believed to be dead, and the signs were there in our face from the moment he walked in. From their placement at the table during staff dinner, to the multiple stories about the women factory workers who worked for William, to the time Miss Wilson went to just check on Robert. The signs were there all along. We also find out, through implied conversation, she was responsible for poisoning Sir William. And the evidence, yet again, was right under our noses. And also, had we listened to Mr. Wiseman all along, we would have solved this case so much sooner.
It's clear that it's the valet who did it. No, because the valet has access to everybody.
The motive was to cover up the fact she anticipated her son had come back and wanted to kill his father. Miss Wilson has a breakdown, and her sister Miss Croft comes to comfort her. Miss Wilson is torn with sadness for not saying anything to Robert and not letting him know she is still alive. And in one of the most touching scenes of the movie, Miss Croft drops this tremendous heartfelt line.
At least your boy's alive. He's alive. That's what matters.
Both Constance and Lord Stockbridge leave, and Mary and Robert say their goodbyes. The movie ends as it began, with a car on the road, but instead of coming into a storm, it's leaving with sunny days ahead. Were you able to solve it, or did you think it was too easy? Let me know in the comments. Did the clues make sense? Was the motivation for murder valid? To me, this movie does a great job of doing some things that are a bit more popular now, but back in 2001 would have been very original, like against the norm ideas, such as being a bit meta at times with Mr. Wiseman making a movie that's basically the story that we're watching play out. It also does a good job of subverting expectations of the detective character, which is usually pivotal in a murder mystery. Often when they're introduced, they're the ones who solve the case. But in this movie, the detective aspect is mocked. The trope of gathering characters into a room and delivering a monologue of whodunit is completely thrown out the door, and instead replaced with only two characters in a room peeling back layers of the truth in a subtle, inferred conversation. There is no grand reveal, no big moment where the villain tries to do something dramatic once the truth is revealed. And the killers never actually say that they did it, but it's heavily implied, and they don't deny they were the culprits. The reveal instead is much more subtle, much more muted, and low-key. Since it occurs in this way, and the only character who knows the whole truth is our sleuth character, Mary, she is not under any obligation to reveal anything to anyone. She is not a cop, and so she has no loyalty to the law like a detective character would. She herself has not been personally wronged and has no motivation to reveal what she has discovered to anyone. We come to find out the reason that she wants the truth is more of a personal curiosity to make sense of the chaos surrounding her life currently. Her class level puts her in a position where even if she revealed the truth, would the authorities listen to her? Would her employer listen to her? And at the end of the day, would any of it matter if the truth is revealed? This all comes to a peak point when by the end of the movie, the last line Mary says is,
"And what purpose could it possibly serve anyway?"
This movie is more of a dark comedy dramedy of a murder mystery, but I very much enjoy it, and I hope you did too. If you like this video, feel free to check out my reactions to A Haunting in Venice and Murder on the Orient Express, along with the rest of the great work the team is doing on the channel. I have a few more murder mysteries in the queue that I'm planning to break down, but just let me know in the comments which murder mystery you'd like to see solved next. In the meantime, y'all can follow me on all the social medias at Muddy Blakeweather. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is. I always appreciate you. And until the next time, I will see you. Peace.